Hi everyone, I'm Sharon Cannava of Living Breathing Pilates, and this is the first video of my video series Move of the Month, where I will choose one classical Pilates exercise each month to highlight and to break down. So we will talk about goals of the exercise, we'll talk about alignment and anatomy, we'll talk about common mistakes to look out for, and we'll talk about effective modifications to make this exercise work for your body. So I hope you find this helpful and that it inspires you to do some Pilates practice at home this month. So if you are a regular Pilates student, I bet you can guess the exercise I chose for a fitting beginning to this video series. Yep, it's the 100. So the 100 is the first exercise in classical Pilates mat, whether you are an beginner, an intermediate, or an advanced student. There is no getting around the 100. It is a Joseph Pilates original exercise created and documented by Joseph Pilates himself. So let's do it. So first thing I'm gonna do is scoop back on my mat here. And going to go over the basic form of the exercise. So what is the 100, right? So the 100 starts with a curling up of the head, neck, and shoulders. It's called an upper abdominal curl, anchoring deeply into the rib cage. The arms are long and straight. They lift up and they reach forward off of the mat. The legs reach towards the ceiling and they do a slight external rotation, turning out a bit, heels together. And then the legs lower down to what is a working level for each person's body that's a bit different. You start pumping the arms vigorously up and down 6 to 8 inches. And you take the breathing pattern of breathing in for 5 counts and breathing out for 5 counts. You take 10 rounds of breath here, which will equal 100 pumps of those arms. And then you fold the knees into the chest when you're finished and you give your back a little stretch. Okay, so that's the 100. Let's talk about goals. So the number one goal of this exercise is maybe not what you think. It is a warm-up for the heart and lungs. So even after a round or two, I'm a little out of breath talking, that's the idea. That's the point of the vigorous pumping. It should feel very dynamic in nature. Get the heart and the lungs moving for the beginning of the workout. That's why this exercise falls at the beginning of the workout, even though it's so hard. So that's the warm-up for the heart and the lungs. You're certainly stabilizing deeply into your center. The pumping of the arms challenges your ability to stay stable and centered, and in that way you are strengthening your abdominals, all of them, and we will discuss that as we break it down further. So strong work for the abdominal wall, heart and lungs getting a warm-up. 2 other ones to mention. It's a connection to the midline of your body, which I'll discuss when we talk about the legs, hugging into the midline, making this center connection, and also establishing your focus for your workout, right? There's a lot happening. There's a lot of component parts. It requires taking your attention and really bringing it to your body and into this moment. So that's another reason this exercise comes right off the bat. Find that focus. Okay, so now let's break it down into some component parts. I'll start with the upper ab curl, which is the upper body. And let's discuss in more detail what's happening here. So what happens is I lift my head ever so slightly off the mat, just a bit. And then from there, what's happening is I'm deepening into the muscles of my upper core in order to bring my upper back a little bit more off the mat. So I'm curling my way off the mat. My upper vertebrae are curling off the mat, right? So you want to not let your chin dip too close in towards your chest. So when the chin comes in towards the chest, that's called neck flexion. You want to avoid excessive neck flexion in this exercise. Instead, you want to focus on the flexion coming at your spine. So I curl up, it's like I'm trying to make a little wrinkle in my shirt right here, flexing my spine from right underneath where my shoulder blades live, kind of my mid-upper back. That's where the flexing happens, right? So in doing so, I really strengthen the upper fibers of the rectus abdominis, which is the muscle running right down the center of your abdomen. I also get into the strength of the oblique muscles. So when all of your oblique muscles, internal and external, work together, they assist in flexion of the spine. So you've got all of that working as well, right? I used to say cradle a lemon underneath your chin when you're in the top position. Now I think it can be a little bit wider. Maybe it can be an orange, cradling right between the chin and the chest so you don't get to squash it into orange juice, right? You just hold it lightly. Okay, let's move on. The legs. All right, so the legs are extended high. This takes a certain amount of hamstring flexibility. If you don't possess that hamstring flexibility, just put a little bend in your knees. Creates a little slack there, can make this much more comfortable, right? Either way. So from there, as the legs are lowering down, there's a deep connection into the lowest abdominals. So the low ab connection here comes from the legs. The legs are dropping, and they're challenging your low abs to stay connected. So these are the lower fibers of that same rectus abdominis. Also working is your transverse abdominis. So those are your deeper muscles, so they're underneath your rectus abdominis, closer to your spine. They're really your stabilizing muscles. They're the muscles that are going to keep all the organs kind of close into your body. So if as the legs are going down, you start to notice the abdominal wall puffing out or your muscles pushing out, chances are you're losing that connection, the contraction of your transverse abdominis muscle, right? Or you're not able to hold on to it, right? So in that case, you just need to keep the legs a little bit higher so that you can have that strong connection. All right, the legs are working, the backs of the inner thighs are squeezing towards each other, a little bit of seat connection here, glute connection because of your turnout, right? And the heels squeezing together firmly at the top is super important. That's the establishing of your midline. It's an invisible line running straight down the center of your body. You can think middle of the forehead, chin, sternum, belly button, pubic bone, right out to those heels. Yeah, it's a beautiful way of really checking in with the symmetry of your body and your alignment. It's also a great way to really connect deeply to your core. You can think of it like the core of an apple. So instead of just hollowing into the belly all the time and feeling that kind of core strength, to take this concept of hugging all of your muscles in to this center line and finding strength there. Okay. So from there, lastly, let's talk about the arms. The arms are long and straight, right? They are reaching to infinity in front of you. Shoulders are drawn back. It's important to feel the connection of your shoulders to your back, right? Shoulders on back. Your lats come up your back and they connect onto your upper arm bone. So you want to feel that connection as you pump, right? You don't want to let floppy wrists happen. That's pretty common. You see that a lot, right? You want to tighten up the wrists and the fingers and really let that pumping come, not just isolated in the arms, but the pumping comes from that integration with your back body here, right? And Brooke Seiler has this beautiful cue of pumping like you're splashing down on water, right? So that creates a little resistance for the arms and rhythm as you go. Yeah, so that's the arms. Okay. Good. Let's talk about some modifications here. So number one, I'm going to modify for the upper body. So this is a nice one if you have any issues with your neck pathology, or even shoulders, right? You're going to pick the head up and put it on a ball or on a pillow, something to give you a little bit of lift. You'll still feel that anchoring down at the rib cage, but you won't have to tighten up the neck to keep the head up. So I just progress the exercise from there like normal, reaching the legs down a bit. They might not go as low because I don't have the counterbalance of my head lifting, but that's fine. And I hang out here and I do my exercise. Deep breathing in, deep breathing out as I hollow into the belly, especially on exhale. Right? So that's a nice modification for the head. If you're feeling a lot of neck pain in the 100, that is very distracting, right? And it's distracting to your nervous system. It makes it hard to really build strength and to progress. So you can sort of plateau there. So the ball is a nice option as a building block. Okay, the next modification is going to be in the legs. So if you are finding as your legs are floating down and away from you, you are starting to get a little archy lower back, which looks like that, right? It's a little hard to see in the video, but Trust me, it's not so hard to see in real life. I do that one all the time. So you're here and the legs are going down, you're sort of arching into the back, you're creating a little gapping there. That means you're no longer stabilizing deeply against your mat into your low back. You're losing those deep core muscles, right? The legs start to feel really heavy and you might start to feel some strain at the low back. So if that's happening, instead of having that long angle out of the legs, you're gonna go tabletop. Tabletop is a strong 90-degree angle. It is not a relaxed into your chest thing. It is a strong position. The legs work hard to stay together and to hold shape, right? And then from there, you'll just do your 100 right here. Vigorous pumping, deep abdominal connection, long neck, staying anchored with your low back until you are done. All right, the last modification I'll go over is, let's say you've got the exercise, it's going pretty well, you're in your full form, right? But you start to fatigue before the end of your 10 sets, right? Maybe you start to lose the upper back or your rib cage starts to poke out a little bit. Grab onto the backs of your thighs, lift yourself back into position, find your heel connection, abdominals, neck, and then when you're ready, jump back into the next round. All right, so holding on, finding all of your connections, letting go and going back into your breath. And then coming out of it. Okay, so that's the 100. What do you think? Yeah, you love it? You hate it? If you've got questions or comments, you can comment on my Facebook post, or you can always reach me through my website, livingbreathingpilates.com. You can shoot me an email there, and you can also see my teaching schedule, so you can come practice with me in person. All right, take care.